Discussing World War II requires taking a look at the background. First of all, we have three main ideas. The United States tries to stay neutral during this interwar period. There is instability worldwide, politically and economically. And finally, the appeasement of Hitler by Great Britain and France. After World War I, the United States wanted nothing more than to stay isolated from European affairs. Being surrounded by oceans and being the dominant power in both North and South America made isolationism easy. Political instability and economic turmoil defined Europe after World War I. In 1917, Vladimir Lenin and the Red Army win control over Russia, murdering the Tsar and his entire family, and build the world's first communist state, the Soviet Union. By 1920, instability returns as Lenin's health deteriorated and his potential successors struggled to establish control. Joseph Stalin emerges as the winner after a brutal power struggle. After World War I, the Allies broke up the German Empire. A democratic government replaced the old monarchy. And the United States, Great Britain, and France ordered Germany to pay the equivalent of $784 billion for having caused World War I. In addition to having broken up the German Empire, many other smaller democracies were established. After the Great Depression reached Germany, the only thing most Germans wanted was a way out of the Treaty of Versailles. Adolf Hitler established a hold on the minds of Germans by defying Great Britain and France, by stopping reparations payments established in the Treaty of Versailles. He began making promises of rebuilding the German Empire as it was before World War I, and also building a war machine capable of defending Germany, employing millions of unemployed Germans, and preventing Great Britain, France, or anyone else from stopping Hitler's plans. The League of Nations, the brainchild of President Wilson, was supposed to be a peacekeeping group of nations willing to prevent war. When Hitler began building an army, the League did nothing. When Italian dictator Benito Mussolini attacked Ethiopia, it also did nothing. When Hitler used his military to support the dictatorship of Francisco Franco in Spain, the League of Nations proved that it was truly incapable and unwilling to keep peace by not intervening. Great Britain and France wanted to avoid war at all costs. In 1933, they allowed Hitler to stop reparations payments, and they allowed him to build an army. By 1938, Hitler began expanding aggressively. He annexed Austria first, then demanded the Sudetenland, a part of Czechoslovakia with a large German population. British and French leaders did not approve, but when Hitler threatened war, they backed down. This policy became known as appeasement. The British and French thought that if they allowed Hitler to rebuild the German Empire and forget about their World War I debts, that he would stop his aggressive foreign policy. Hitler viewed this policy as weakness, and in 1939 he demanded that Germany reclaim parts of Poland that were a part of the German Empire before World War I. The British and French again met with Hitler, this time refusing their consent to Hitler's demands. At the same time, Hitler met with Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin, who signed a secret non-aggression pact with Hitler in which the two agreed to invade and divide Poland. Hitler invaded Poland in 1939, and shortly thereafter, Great Britain and France declared war on Germany. In Poland, the Germans unleashed a new type of warfare, the Blitzkrieg, which consisted of fierce air raids, rapid movements of tanks, troop carriers, and infantry. The United States was completely absorbed with recovering from the Great Depression, and wanted nothing to do with European or Asian politics. Congress passed two laws, the Neutrality Acts, to keep American passengers off ships traveling to Europe. Congress feared that allowing Americans on ships sailing into a war zone could prompt America to support joining the war should those ships be sunk. Americans were also prohibited from selling weapons to countries at war. When Japan invaded China in 1937, Roosevelt made his famous quarantine speech, telling the world that peaceful nations had to act together to quarantine aggressive nations. Roosevelt urged boycotts and trade embargoes against such nations. To protect China from being taken over, the United States and Great Britain sent supplies. Roosevelt would later threaten an oil embargo against Japan unless it gave up its conquest of the East. In 1939, Congress voted to increase military spending and enacted the first peacetime draft. In 1941, Roosevelt proposed the Lend-Lease Act to send war materials to Great Britain, who was now alone in the fight against Germany. By 1941, Japan had taken all of Southeast Asia and parts of Indonesia. Japanese pilots were already engaged in fighting with the United States pilots, called the Flying Tigers, over China, and knew that the United States would continue to block their advance and force them to give up territory they occupied. Japan took a risk, and on December 7, 1941, Japanese planes launched a surprise attack on the entire United States fleet docked at Pearl Harbor. This attack sank 18 ships, destroyed 260 planes, and killed 6,000,